Good. All right. Welcome to the next lecture in the St. Luke's and Idaho Clinicians for Climate and Health lecture series. We have two outstanding speakers today, Aparna Dial from The Ohio State University and Sandee Gehrke from St. Luke's Health Systems. We do have several more lectures in our fall series coming up in October. We'll be having the medical director from Boston Medical Center come talk about their great work with their Clean Power Prescription Program and rooftop gardens. In November, we'll have a physician from the University of California at San Francisco talk about plastics and healthcare. And in December, we'll have our capstone talk with Bill McKibben talking about his career in climate activism. Today, we have a very exciting lecture that was inspired by my first visit to the Clean Med conference, which I would encourage anyone in healthcare and sustainability to attend this coming May in Atlanta, Georgia. I saw one of Aparna's colleagues from the Ohio State University talking about green bonds and green funding and how they were using those levers to help build a really innovative new hospital design. So Aparna is going to tell us all about their history at the Ohio State University and how they have worked to become a more sustainable system. Aparna has a distinguished public service record with over 25 years of leadership, strategic and operational experience. In her current role as Senior Director for Facilities Management, Engineering, and Sustainability, she does 6 or 7 jobs and manages complex and large-scale operations, including overseeing a $145 million budget, a large workforce of more than 170 employees, and vast physical infrastructure spanning over 100 buildings. She leads sustainability initiatives, facilities contacts, building maintenance, and engineering and energy services for the Ohio State University and the Wexner Medical Center. Aparna established the Ohio State University Office of Energy Services and Sustainability in 2004 and plays a key role in maintaining a national and internal reputation for sustainability through collaborative teaching such as events like today, pioneering research, comprehensive outreach, innovative operations, practices, and policies. Her academic background, including a graduate degree in civil and environmental engineering from Utah State University, combining with her MBA with a focus on finance, gives her a unique skill set that's well suited to challenges of leading and managing large organizations and significant initiatives. She's a highly accomplished leader. Her expertise, experience, and dedication have earned her a distinguished reputation and make her a valuable asset to the Ohio State University and our broader community. Please welcome Aparna Dial.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Please let me know if you can see it. Dr. Sims, I'd appreciate that. Are you able to?
Yeah, it looks great.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me here today. As Dr. Sims mentioned, my name is Aparna Dial. And the purpose of this presentation is really twofold. It is to share with you some of the progress we've made with our sustainability initiatives at the Ohio State University and the Wexner Medical Center. But I think more importantly, it's to contribute to this dialogue about how all of us can accelerate the commitment to sustainability at our respective institutions. So I always like to start with defining sustainability. A lot of times the word green and sustainable are used interchangeably, but green or the planet is just one aspect of sustainability. So one simple way of thinking about it, maybe in terms of 3 Ps, like you also have to take into consideration people and prosperity. And you may be surprised by this, but Dow Jones defines sustainability as a business approach that creates shareholder value. And they did this in 1999, believe it or not. And they established the Global Sustainability Index for the global market in 1999 and for the US and North American markets in 2004 and 2005. So for us also, it's a business approach that allows us to embrace opportunities and mitigate risks that arise from social, economic, and environmental developments. So another thing that I wanted to share with you today is data from the Governance and Accountability Institute. They're a research institution that tracks sustainability reporting in the S&P 500, reporting trends rather. And then they've done this since 2011. And I'm sure all of you have heard of the Standard & Poor's 500. It comprises of the 500 largest companies and represents about 80% of the outstanding equity in the US markets. So these are large global companies. And as you can see, in 2011, about 20% of them filed a sustainability report or an ESG report. But that amount is now, as of 2021, is more like 96%. So if you have to make a business case for sustainability, I don't think you have to look any farther than the Dow Jones or the S&P 500 for your institution. And the other data indicates that companies that have heavy emissions are trading at a 15% discount compared to those that have lower emissions within their same sector. The other thing that's very helpful as you're thinking about sustainability across the organization and creating a framework to sort of move all in the same direction is to have institutional-wide goals adopted, right? So for us in 2015, we adopted institutional goals in the arena of teaching and learning, research and innovation. So the teaching and learning goal is all about teaching sustainability in a variety of formats inside and outside of the classroom. Research and innovation goal is about rewarding sustainability scholarship and output. And outreach and engagement, exactly what we are doing today, is about creating a culture of sustainability on and off our campus through local and global partnerships. And the last goal, resource stewardship, where I have the most direct influence and control, is all about minimizing the footprint from our day-to-day operations. On any given day, we have 100,000 people on our campus. We have a huge consumer of resources. So our goals run the gamut from becoming carbon neutral to achieving energy efficiency in our buildings, to getting to be zero waste, which means diverting 90% of the waste away from the landfill, reducing water consumption. Just to give you a sense of scale, our utility bills for our Columbus campus alone are like $100 million. So over 10 years, it's a $1 billion asset to manage. We use over 1 billion gallons of water on our Columbus campus alone. So we have quite a bit of scale. So it's up to us not only to conserve resources, but also to manage our costs. We have other goals like buying environmentally preferred products, and ecosystem services might be a new term, but it's all about boosting the benefits that we get from our natural landscapes across campus. So these are the strategic plan pillars for our medical center. So as you're getting, I'm not sure where people are in their sustainability journey. I think one thing that's really important to think about is don't make it a one-off, right? It needs to be integrated into the institutional priorities as they exist. So for us, sustainability is what I like to think of as a horizontal that cuts across these institutional strategic plan pillars. So we have initiatives under each of these areas. So for instance, when we bring new employees on board, all our orientation sessions are zero waste, and we have a module dedicated to sustainability. We have several research projects, several programmatic areas under operational excellence. And I think it's also important to have engagement structures all through the organization. So we adopt annual goals for the Wexner Medical Centers that's ratified by the C-suite, right? And that's in alignment with the larger institutional goals that I just shared. We have lots of working groups across the organization, including our Sustainability Council and several advocacy and employee engagement groups. For instance, we have a green team, and we have over 1,000 members now. And this started at the medical center, and now we are expanding that opportunity to the rest of the university. So we are very much an academic medical center, and I know those vary, but we are very much integrated with the Ohio State University and do things in alignment and in collaboration. So these are all the different areas where our programs, we have very robust programs where we measure results. And I can share some of those with you because I also want to save some time on our building design standards and our building policies and so forth. So this is a program called MedShorts. It's an e-commerce platform, digital platform, where they put pharmaceutical companies with a glut of products that are set to expire within a year with hospital pharmacies. And we've done this since fiscal year 19, and we've saved over $1 million and diverted about 175,000 products from the waste stream. All of you very much probably are aware of the global warming potential of the different anesthetic gas agents. So we worked with our anesthesiology department. We've not eliminated desflurane or anything like that, but simply through stickering and grand rounds, we've able to cut our emissions down by 65% and use of clinical champions and driven savings of about $300,000. And this has been since for the last 3 or 4 years or so. We also have a single-use device reprocessing program. Our primary partner is Stryker, and we've done this for a very long time. These are the types of devices that we buy back that are reprocessed. And we also track very much how many devices are going to the landfill, how much is reprocessed, how much are we going to, how much do we buy back? So we have data, if you're ever curious, that we can share on all of those things. And we have over $1 million in savings annually. And we've diverted thousands of tons away from the landfill since the inception of this program. This is something I'm really, really proud of. We have an environmentally preferred procurement policy that we established in 2018 through our GPO. We worked with our GPO to create data and metrics. And you can see this is all for clinical spend. We have about $459 million worth of eligible spend that's in scope. And so we have 23 chemicals of harm that we try to avoid. And then there are other desirable attributes that we like recycled content, energy efficiency, and so forth. Out of the 459 million, 278 million of that has at least one attribute that's compliant. And to the right-hand side, this is what we call our platinum standard. All of those 13 EP standard attributes are met through this 57.8 million spent. So we are trying to move more towards the right-hand side to get more and more of our clinical products to be in what I call this platinum category. This is some information regarding the Ohio State University waste trends. As I mentioned, we are a large institution, we generate a lot of materials. And for the university, our diversion rate is about 42% as a whole, including the medical center. And if you look at our diversion rate just from the medical center, we are currently at 38%. This is pretty darn good, I think. Most communities, cities, large institutions plateau about 30 to 35%. So we have numerous programs that enable this diversion rate to happen. And cumulatively, we don't have fiscal year 24 numbers yet. We've driven cost savings, and that doesn't even include a lot of things like MedShorts and the other programs that we shared of about $16 million over a 6-year period of time. Wanted to talk to you guys today spend a little bit of time on our design and construction practices and policies. So I've been at the university for about 24 years now. And back in about 2004, 2005, we were building huge signature buildings, I like to call them. They look beautiful. So we had about 3 or 4 buildings by square footage. They were about maybe 8% of the square footage, but consuming 15% of the energy. So we thought, we need to have a policy in place. So we created, and I pushed for and created policy 310. That's what you see in 2008. So we required all new construction and major renovations over $4 million to be a minimum LEED Silver certified. Then our institution adopted sustainability goals in 2015. We have a $1 billion public-private partnership with Ohio State Energy Partners. Their global company is called ENGIE, based out of France. They manage all of our utility infrastructure. As part of that contract, we require them to cut energy consumption down by 25% in our buildings on a per square footage basis over a 10-year period of time. So, and by this point, we've had about 50 odd buildings on our campus that are LEED certified, silver to platinum. So we decided to think about like, how do we create an Ohio State-centric set of standards for construction, and how do we update this policy so we can drive a straight line between the building performance and our institutional goals. So I led this process across the institution. We had used our intellectual capital that as the university that we have and the medical center that we have access to, and used 2 years to create a whole new set of building design standards and created a new sustainable design and construction policy. And I can share some details. So in order to do that, we said, why be tied to LEED? Well is on the marketplace, sites is there. There's some really stringent code in California and Seattle. So we looked at everything that we could possibly borrow from, learn from, that was available to us. And then we also wanted to think about what were some of the gaps that some of the current policy had, right? The current policy only applied to big projects. Rather than, we have hundreds of projects that happen on an annual basis, and a very small percentage of them reach that $4 million threshold. The other thing that happens is with construction projects, there's a whole lot of focus on first costs and getting things done on budget, where rather than think about what's the life cycle cost of the building, the majority of a cost of a building is over the life cycle, not for construction and renovation, right? So we build buildings to last 100 years, and that was very, very important to consider. And we also wanted the ability to make rapid changes if things don't work with our standards or policies. So here's just a look at the total number of projects we do annually. And as you can see, it's in the hundreds, dollar value wise, as well as quantity wise. And then if you can see projects greater than 4 million, it's a relatively small portion that's impacted by the old policy. And here are all the different, the details and categories behind our design standards. And any of this is available. I'm happy to share our policy. I'm happy to share all of our sustainability standards if it's beneficial to you. So every project now, regardless of dollar threshold, has to go through a sustainability review process, whether you're painting a room, updating lighting fixtures, or building a brand new building. So we have stringent energy efficiency standards, water efficiency standards. I talked about ecosystem services, right? We are all familiar when we cut down trees to do a lay down site, that we cut down more trees to build a building sometimes, right? So with this, at least there's a focus, and the idea is you need to either restore the site to the same level of benefit or do better. And then we have a category on materials. So 50% of our materials by cost have to have sustainability certifications. The user experience is all about our patients, our building users. Their requirements in here about indoor air quality, day lighting, biophilic design considerations, so that the connection to nature can be boosted. I talked about the life cycle cost analysis. We require every project, major project, to do life cycle cost analysis for energy, water, and materials. So we push decisions over the life of the facility rather than make decisions based on first cost. And of course, access and connectivity is a focus to make sure that every member of our community has easy access to our facilities. So this is what I mean by performance-based targets. So the units here, I apologize, are in terms of British thermal units per square foot. So you take all the energy inputs into a building, right? Whether it is pounds of steam, ton hours of chilled water, kilowatt hours of electricity, you convert it into a common unit of British thermal units and divide it by the square footage. That gives you the average consumption of energy on a per square footage basis. As you can see, a hospital will use a lot less energy than an inpatient hospital, right? Sorry, an office compared to an inpatient hospital. So these are targets. So each of our buildings is metered. So a new building has to meet this target, say for lodging, 50 kBTUs per square foot. They cannot exceed that. Let me walk you through this a little bit. This is really, on the x-axis, we've listed existing LEED buildings on our campus. We have a box around 2 of our Wexner Medical Center buildings. Okay, follow me so far? So the scarlet bar that you see is actual performance. These are existing buildings, and this is where their energy performance is today. The scarlet bar, so we measure, we meter, we get this number, right? This is actual data. If these same buildings were to be built today, right? These are all LEED buildings. They would have to meet this gray bar standard. So it's a lot more stringent, heavier, stricter performance requirement in terms of energy performance for our buildings. Again, these are all our LEED buildings, and the scarlet bar is actual energy that's being used today. And the gray bars are what we require new buildings, the new standard for them to meet. So again, for those 2 hospital buildings, if they were to be built to the in-house standards that we created today, we would have reduced our Columbus campus electricity emissions by 10% and avoided about 25,000 metric tons of carbon. Just in fiscal year 24, 389 projects have been reviewed. There are 4 large projects over $4 million. And you can see, cumulatively since 21, it's hundreds of millions of dollars of spend that we put through this lens. And routinely for large projects, we have 50 plus staff engaged in the planning and design and review process for these buildings. So we continue to grow and build, perhaps all of you do too. So we anticipate a growth of over 3 million square feet in a relatively short period of time, like 5 years. We continue to build outpatient care facilities, take care out to our communities where it's needed. So our outpatient care building in New Albany and in Dublin, Ohio is already in place. Our new inpatient hospital, I'll talk about this, is going to come online in 2026. And so is the Interdisciplinary Health Sciences Center is online already. Our outpatient care West Campus has come online, and our outpatient care Powell building will also come online in 2026. So let me talk about our inpatient hospital a little bit. So this inpatient hospital or inpatient tower will add 1.8 million square feet to our space. And it's a $2 billion construction project. So it's the largest construction project in the history of the university and the Wexner Medical Center. So we wanted to think about, we've had a rich history of creating standards, incorporating sustainability features in our building. How can we leverage that to get favorable lending rates, right? So I'm not financial person, but the idea behind green bonds are this is an investment mechanism that investors can use to get lower rates for borrowing than traditional mechanisms. So we worked with our Office of Business and Finance to say, how can we leverage our green bonds to fund some of the sustainable features in our building? So we were able to get 2 green bonds, and it's beyond that, at very favorable borrowing rates. And some of the sustainability features in our buildings, in this particular building, in fact, the whole building is flexible and adaptive in terms of design. So you can treat someone with a heart problem or bring new life into the world. All of the public spaces, the lobbies will be flooded with natural light, including 820 of our patient rooms. Each of them have like a massive window 9x9 to help with healing and recovery. Lot of energy efficient features, water efficient design. We've invested in technology to divert significant food waste. We have spaces for recycling. We can divert even specialty plastics from our ORs. We have green terraces outside the cafe, again, to help with their healing and recovery. We've advanced our standards for technology and safety. We're really focused on access so we can deliver highest levels of care for generations to come for anyone in our community that so desires. So I'll go back here. Remember, the first building to come online is our outpatient care New Albany building. So what we did, and this looks a little bit rudimentary, we decided to say, hey, how do we create a dashboard across all of these different categories that I just showed you in our building design standards? So you see that the energy, we have some model targets, but we are actually monitoring real-time energy use to see what the building performance looks like. And we do the same for water use intensity, which is also how much water you use on a per square footage basis. As you can see, there was a huge spike here. I don't know if you can see my cursor, that alerted us to the fact that there was a leak in our sprinkler system that we subsequently fixed. And we seem to be doing okay across each of these categories in our building standards. So how do we push the envelope even further? So our outpatient care building in Powell will have both a medical office and I think, and an ambulatory or new outpatient clinic. So we received a permission from our board of trustees to embark on construction and design in May of 2022. And as I mentioned, we expect to open our doors in 2026. So during the summer of 2023, work was progressing on the design. And then at that time, Healthcare Without Harm introduced us to America is All In, a coalition partner. And the idea was collectively we'll work to think about how do we make use of funds available under the Inflation Reduction Act to help finance sustainability features that are being considered for this facility. So we looked at what federal incentives might exist. And so as a result of this evaluation, we started thinking about like a heat recovery chiller, potentially, a partial or full geothermal field, a rooftop solar, parking lot canopy, solar over our parking lot. So those were some of the things we said, okay, this could be potential design choices. Let's see how the IR can help fund these opportunities. So there are several provisions that could benefit not only Ohio State, but other health systems, other entities. So they range from what they call an investment tax credit for energy efficiency, and then there's a production tax credit for renewable energy. So for energy efficiency projects like the heat recovery chiller or the geothermal well field, there's like a 30% tax credit, and then there's an additional 10% bonus. There are certain conditions you have to meet, like you're paying prevailing wage, 100% of your iron and steel for the project is made within the US. So these are real life numbers in terms of benefits from that investment tax credit. So if you're a nonprofit entity like us and you're tax exempt, so there's a provision to get direct pay with these amounts for each of these different options that we considered. The other option that's available is if you have energy efficient design, then depending on how you do against the baseline, the dollar value could vary. So are you 25% more efficient compared to an ASHRAE baseline, up to 50%, right? So the dollar amount changes. So when we did that evaluation, and these are the numbers, right? So if you take the ambulatory healthcare center, you see at 50% efficiency, it's 280,000 plus a medical office building of 757,000. That's nearly what, $1 million or more in terms of commercial tax credits. So these typically go to the designer or construction firm, right? But what you can do as the building owner is negotiate with these firms to say, hey, what's our share of the cost? So the final deduction here will be determined through the final modeling process as we go through. So where did we end up? Right, so remember, we looked at the heat recovery chiller, we looked at a geothermal field, we looked at solar on our roof, and we looked at solar on our parking areas. So we ended up with the heat recovery chiller. This will decrease natural gas energy in our natural gas usage in our health center by about 30%. And we are looking at a cost savings agreement with the project construction firm to enable this additional cost of this information. So as you saw from the cost savings, the geothermal energy, the rooftop solar, and the solar parking canopy would also have provided significant tax credits. But we were a little late in the process. Remember, the design and planning had already begun in 2023 when we went into this exercise. And although the federal guidance at the time was not yet finalized for alternative fuel infrastructure like charging stations, what we did was we put in 5 EV charging stations and we have 35 EV ready parking spots. And then the building, though we did not put solar panels on the buildings, it's solar ready. So we can put those on at any time. So some lessons learned, do start early. Don't wait till the design and process has already commenced to do this exercise. And having a champion, not just for this, but for any initiative that you're embarking on at the senior level, is very, very important because you may not always have a return on investment with your initiatives. And while we only looked at upfront cost savings from available tax credits, you need to take a more comprehensive look and say, hey, can the IRA help holistically when you look at your other energy reduction strategies or master planning efforts or deferred maintenance efforts or new building design efforts? So I think as a result of our work, we've been recognized at the local, state, and national levels. And I think I'll turn it over to you, Ethan.
Wow, what an amazing job you guys have done at Ohio State, Aparna. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. We've got a bunch of questions to follow up with, but we will get to those after we have Sandee go through her slides. So our next speaker is Sandee Gehrke. Sandee is the Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer at St. Luke's Health System since 2021. And in her role as COO, Sandee serves as the Chief Executive Officer of 8 acute care facilities, 300 plus ambulatory care sites with clinical centers of excellence in oncology, orthopedics, children's, neuroscience, and women's services, and provides strategic leadership for a network of more than 4,000 providers. Within St. Luke's, she's been responsible for strengthening the shared services core of the organization, leading teams across construction, patient access, facilities, laundry, environmental services, food nutrition, security, continuous improvement, enterprise staffing, capital planning, and pharmacy to standardize and optimize performance. Throughout her career, Sandee has built teams, mentored up-and-coming leaders in the healthcare space, and successfully executed plans and initiatives aligned with the organizational strategies and goals. Prior to joining St. Luke's in 2014, Sandee held progressive leadership positions with HCA Healthcare and served as an associate administrator at Sunrise Medical Center in Las Vegas, Nevada, and as Chief Operating Officer at ERMAC and Idaho Falls. She was born and raised in Caldwell, Idaho, received her bachelor's degree from Idaho State University and a master's degree from the University of Colorado. She remains active and committed to university functions and success and serves on multiple boards funding undergraduate and graduate scholarships for health sciences students. She's board certified in healthcare management, a fellow of the American College of Healthcare Executives, served as regent for the state of Idaho from 2012 to 2015, and currently serves on the Idaho Hospital Association Board of Directors as the Secretary and Treasurer, and as a board director for the Women's and Children's Alliance. Sandee and her husband Josh love music, traveling, and spending time with their 7-year-old daughter, Carolyn. Please welcome Sandee Gehrke to talk about St. Luke's.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Sims. And what a great presentation. I took away some nuggets that I think we're going to integrate into our planning and design efforts, as well as our thoughts on how we fund healthcare building going forward. So appreciate being able to be a part of the conversation today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen as well. Make sure that that's all good. Perfect. All right. Well, I'm going to focus a bit on our journey from a St. Luke's perspective, but specific to one of our design projects that we have in place right now. And I guess today I get to say not a design project any longer. It is officially under construction. Let's see if I can get this to go. There we go. Our Boise downtown campus is one of the largest projects that we will ever take on as an organization. And I say that today, but who knows what will happen in the next 10 to 20 years. But as the previous speaker indicated, it is close to over 1 million square feet in construction and consists of a 9-story inpatient tower, as well as a medical office building that attaches that tower to a newer, I was going to call it by its name, Northwest parking structure that just came online as we entered the COVID era. But this campus is about building on our promise to our communities and really delivering on our mission and our vision, and particularly in achieving the health and improving that of the communities that we serve. So the upgrading and the enhancement of this campus has really been instrumental to us in responding to the demand that we have seen. But it's also about improving the convenience, the accessibility, the clinical workflows, and the efficiencies of our care teams, and really the integration of the services that we provide on the continuum of care, accessing services in the outpatient environment as well as in the acute inpatient environment, and then the connection to our post-acute services. One of the things that as we designed this campus in particular, we were thinking about, and this is spread over a long period of time, is just that flexibility component. And so understanding how we can use spaces differently and for the long term, how the market dynamics have changed, how our service offerings have changed, and how our patient and our family needs, wants, and desires have changed. And then enter COVID. Which really also allowed us to think about our design differently. And one of the things that was really instrumental in maybe what we had already started, but was solidified through our COVID experience. And as we came out of COVID and back into really heads down design on this campus, was understanding how and when we had surge capacity situations, we could flex our space. So how agile could we get? How could we flex capacity when you have a med surge inpatient unit into an ICU unit, if that's the level of care that needs to be provided? And so that really is foundational in our constructability as it stands today. I guess maybe a little bit about this. A lot of the square footage that you see here on the screen is replacement square footage. So we, with that 1 million square feet, are really only adding close to 80 new beds upon opening and an additional 10 operating suites. And part of that is because of the current design of our building is back in the day. And so a lot of our inpatient rooms don't have windows. They don't meet current code standards. They are too small for the technology and equipment that we have today, let alone providing that optimal patient family experience as we truly integrate the families into the care that we're providing. So it looks really big, but it is more about expanding that footprint, replacing those facilities, and truly enhancing and doing what we can do to deliver on that promise to our community. One of the other elements that really contributes to this larger footprint is our operating suites. Today, they are in our sub basement. And so we really struggle with our floor to ceiling height, as well as from time to time, some flooding implications based off of the water table. And so this is a commitment also to our proceduralists and how we get their space to be more modern and to allow us to do some of the new and exciting technologies that are out there in the industry today. So as I mentioned, this has spread a very long duration in terms of planning and design. Back in 2015 is when we received approval through the Boise City and the Highway District for the placement of this new tower and the medical office building, as we needed to close a public roadway. And in that year, we were able to engage with the Boise City on their green code building design. This was something that they had previously not implemented, and we were able to be partners with them in truly understanding and designing the code for everybody's use, which I think is just a real testament to the work that we were doing back in 2015 that really set us on the trajectory for the work that we are doing with our sustainability team today. And in doing that with the Boise City, we looked at all sorts of rating systems, LEED, WELL, our Green Globes, Energy Star, and of course, the International Green Construction Code was coming out at about that time. So the Boise Green Building Code is a voluntary code. It has been amended and edited by the city multiple times, and we've been able to be at the table for many of those revisions. There are elements within that building code that we are able to have exceptions and modifications for. It's not geared specifically towards building an inpatient hospital. And so things like the reduction in the water fixtures and our ability to comply with that are pieces that we've been able to partner with the city on. So fast forward, enter COVID, we sort of stood down our design team and the work that was going on there and focused on responding to the community demand and the pandemic at large at that point in time. We were able to restart our planning and design efforts in 2022. And at that point in time, as a leadership team, we really asked the design team to establish goals around sustainability and what would that be as we look forward. We had just committed to a sustainability team and a department infrastructure within the organization. And so really wanted to make sure that what we were doing was meaningful and material, but also visible. And so at that point in time, we did revalidate that what we were wanting to build to was that green building code with the Boise City. And in doing that, along the way, we've also continued to work with a variety of different partners. Here are just some pictures of how that commitment and that partnership has continued to evolve from our continued relationship with Idaho Power and our energy conservation efforts, as well as our commitment to signing the Health Sector Climate Pledge. We worked in partnership with Preservation Idaho and the Historic Society here in the state of Idaho to preserve and relocate more than 5 historic homes that were sitting on the city street that we needed to vacate and close. And so that work really helped create a different level of commitment to preservation, but also helped keep all of those homes and materials out of the landfill. In addition, that tree that you see over there is, this picture doesn't do it justice, is quite a significant tree. It has been on the hospital campus since inception in 1902, and we worked with the city and an external forester to relocate that tree from our private property to a city park, and it is thriving. And we are just really proud and pleased to have been able to make that happen and continue our commitment to being a healthcare tree campus. John William Jackson Fund, this is a really unique partnership that I just wanted to make sure that I touched on. It was funded in a passion for recycling, but also in a passion for providing nursing scholarships. And John William Jackson is a predominant public figure here in our community, but we've worked with him on multiple construction projects where they bring in all of the resources that we need to be able to also contribute our metal and steel and recyclable waste to, and then they do the work to take them away. And all of the proceeds from that recycling effort funds nursing scholarships within our community. And we're able to really see that in a tangible way in terms of supporting our people, our growth, and our nursing talent pipeline. As we zoom in maybe a little bit more in particular on the actual Boise campus, there are some unique things that we've been thinking about, maybe not as sophisticated as what we just heard, but definitely on our journey, I think have been significant in the design of this campus. So when we think about the outside of our campus, the site has been designed to really mitigate heat island effects. And that's been not only through planting and shading, but the use of our white TPO roof. And within that planting and shading, we have a commitment to using biodiverse native plants and adaptive native plants where possible. And I think right now a majority, if not over 90% of our planting is slated to be within those categories. We've also planned for future vegetated roofs or rooftop gardens where we have some unique aspects of adjacency on shelled patient rooms. So our patients and our families can enjoy the visibility of that. And we're currently in the process on activating on a rooftop garden on top of our children's pavilion to allow for that impact as well. Light pollution reduction strategies, this has been a big part of our Boise City partnership. And so to the extent that we are able to reduce that night glare into the sky, we want to be good partners there. So everything that we have from an exterior light fixture standpoint is going downwards, not upwards, and complying with that ability to reduce that light. Our construction waste management program that I just talked about, we did set a goal there relative to how much of the landfill we would reduce by recycling, reusing, or even salvaging that construction waste. And right now that goal is to meet or exceed 35% of those materials being diverted from the landfill. And that measurement is by weight at this point in time. And then in conjunction with that, 10% of the cost of our new building materials, we want to be from recycled sources. And that also gives preference to local manufacturing and the use of bio-based products. We've reduced the carbon concrete that we're using externally on this site. And so we're using a particular cement that is able to reduce that footprint by 10%. And that parking garage that I alluded to in the very beginning, it is currently designed to accommodate a solar power canopy at a future state. We really struggled with that first cost versus second cost in the decision on whether we were going to fund that up front or design and create the infrastructure to come back around that at a later date. And ultimately, just based off of some constraints at the point in time that we were at, the infrastructure is there and we have goals to come back. We are looking and are planning that everything will be metered from a water and an energy consumption so that as this building comes online, we're able to do more of that sophisticated data analytics and identify and measure the actual building performance and make those needed improvements through our building automation and other things that we need to do. Energy efficiency relative to that medical office plaza and the tower is modeled right now to be more efficient than the baseline that's required by code. But it's just scraping the surface. And I think we all would like to see it at a much greater rate, like the Ohio State University has done. But right now we're looking at somewhere between that 5 to 10% in terms of being more efficient. I think as building comes online and we're able to actually measure it and see the impacts of some of these other design efforts, hopefully that we can get to a different place as we move forward. In addition, you see some of this pretty nice glass in this building picture, and we're using shading, but also the dynamic glazing so that we can mitigate some of that glare and the heat gain that we've got and with the solar exposure on the side of the building in particular. We've also been working with the teams to ensure that where we can, equipment within our cafeteria and other areas are Energy Star rated. I think sometimes that's been a catch-22 because we've been able to find equipment that is more energy efficient in some cases, but our goal is to look to lead with those Energy Star rated elements within our cafeteria and our food services and environmental services. Some of the other highlights that the team shared with me recently that they're really proud of is our commitment and a new policy to look at limiting those red list materials that are bad for our occupant health, but also really change the dynamics of our climate and our landfill when they make their way there. We also are not using any mercury in any of our light fixtures. And then most recently, the team really embarked on an effort to look at how we might create the bridge that spans the new tower to the old tower. And originally, a whole north wing of the existing facility was slotted to come down, demolished and be taken away. And recently the team came up with the decision and a design to keep that north wing and instead to build a bridge over it and around it. And in doing so, not only created some value engineering from the overall construction costs to this project, but a significant reduction in our waste to the landfill, less energy and transportation, and just fewer materials in the overall build of this connector bridge than was originally slotted for. And the team really felt like this was an awesome and a unique win-win for both St. Luke's and the environment, and probably something that wouldn't have come to mind if we weren't trying to look at this through that sustainability lens. So Dr. Sims, that is kind of where we've been on our journey specifically to this campus and the design. That the steel for the bridge connector that I just spoke about flew this weekend. And so it is up and we are actively started on construction and really excited to see all of this come out of the ground and come to life and see the fruits of our labor and continuing to work on our sustainability journey to really just enhance where we are at and get even better.
Thank you so much, Sandee. That was really exciting to see all that St. Luke's is doing with our new construction. We know that we're in an infancy stage versus where Aparna has gotten Ohio State. But it's so great to have a real global leader, talking side by side with us to share some great innovations that we can learn from and build into our future projects. The first question I have is for Aparna. I just wanted to call back to something you said. We had the pleasure of speaking on Boise State Public Radio yesterday. And Aparna, you talked very passionately about how sustainability is not just a financial benefit and an environmental benefit to the hospital, but also sort of a community investment that goes into retaining and improving employee recruitment and retention, offers community health benefits and community educational workforce training opportunities. Could you maybe share some of your thoughts or stories on that topic? We have a lot of questions from the audience, so I want to try to get through them quickly, but I just thought it was so beautiful how you spoke about this yesterday. Aparna, you're on mute. It's got to be one per session.
I sound better that way.
Yes.
So I wonder, Ethan, if I should talk about our program at the Ohio Stadium. I wonder if that would be relevant here. So I said this yesterday, I'll say this again, you know, being a Buckeye, we have to talk about football no matter what, right? The venue. So Ohio Stadium is one of the largest athletic stadiums in the country. And typically for a game, we have 100,000 people that attend. You know, they're inside the stadium, there are another 100,000 on the outside. So when you think about it in terms of like, hey, how much waste are we generating? What can we do? We partnered with our athletics department, and over a period of time, you know, we started with commingled recycling, but evolved to becoming a zero waste stadium program that's pretty award winning. So inside the stadium, we don't have any trash cans, except in the bathroom, you can either compost or recycle. And then we have these zero waste stations, and we hire inner city high school youth to be sort of our ambassadors. And I, you know, it's their first exposure to university, to an educational setting. And I think what's very important there is the fact that there's a market change in the aspirational levels. They talk about going to college, wherever it may be. And that's really important. And all of the waste that we collect, our recycling and our compost, our food waste goes to the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections, where incarcerated individuals compost the food, and then they you know, sort the plastics. We would never be able to achieve zero waste without that partnership, but we pay minimum wage to the individuals. We do conservation education. We provide certifications, because for us, it's very, very important upon release that they have opportunities and jobs. And we, through the help of the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections, we also look at recidivism rates for the participants in our program, and that's been zero to date. And we have several testimonials of how they've been able to save money through this program and land on their feet and get a new start in life. So that to me is way more important than any sort of zero waste percentage that we can divert.
Yeah, it's a beautiful example of that win-win-win. I don't know if we'll have time to get to all the questions unless our guests are able to stay for a few minutes afterwards. So I'll just keep going through them, and maybe we'll keep going until folks have to go. I'm going to try to merge a few of our questions that we've got from the audience that have to do with community benefits and community engagement with the projects. Will Boise Green Building Code adaptations for St. Luke's be applicable outside of the city of Boise? And has St. Luke's, it's great that St. Luke's has put so much research and investment into making this new facility more sustainable, but are we showcasing this to the public? And are we looking at, and is Ohio State looking at traffic mitigation with the city and neighborhood environments they're moving into to reduce emissions associated with increased traffic to these beautiful new buildings?
So maybe I could start relative to Boise Green Code and St. Luke's. We've committed to that Green Code standard for all of our buildings at this point. We want to do better than that standard. So in many of our outpatient designs, we are able to perhaps build and design beyond that. So even though it is specific to the city of Boise, our design teams have integrated those standards and our policy and our philosophy on the recycled materials and the waste reduction strategies for all of our future builds. So for example, we just came live in the South of Nampa clinic a year and a half ago. And while that clinic was built in a different city, it is built to the Boise Green Code. And then I would say, to showcasing that, or really involving the public, this series and the great leadership that Dr. Sims and Stephanie provide for our sustainability program, we are well on our way. We are looking specifically within that Boise campus lobby of how we can display the different sustainable elements of the design as we go further. So while I think we've kind of stair-stepped into how we're sharing some of these achievements with the public, it hasn't been super overt, and we could probably be more direct and really talk about what we're doing differently.
Aparna, how are you dealing with that at Ohio State?
So can you repeat, was there a question around transportation, Ethan?
Yeah, so like a lot of community interaction and questions I was trying to wedge together into one.
Okay,
So
I can
how are you engaging with the community in sharing the great work you're doing? But then the traffic part of it was maybe a clumsy add-on, but you know, like when you're building a huge new facilities in a footprint like ours in a like quiet-ish neighborhood, how are you mitigating the traffic impacts and the emissions associated with that while still expanding access that you know our community needs this building?
So while this may not be example of a huge new building, there was a very in one of our near side east side neighborhoods is a historic building. It was the Martin Luther King Library. It was really, really important for the community to preserve that building. So with their partnership, we converted it into a healthy community center. And they have access to programming and cooking classes, the preventive health screenings and things of that nature. There was huge ribbon cutting with the community members because it's been a part of their neighborhood for decades. It's very, very important to them. The other thing that was really important to them was the heat island effect. So we just started small and planted 20 trees. And then we applied for an EPA grant, and that'll go up to about 125 trees in that neighborhood, if that is an example. And then we just got a grant. That's what I was trying to look up for, $300,000 that we applied for with the U.S. Department of Transportation to create a comprehensive, I'm reading, transportation safety plan focused on vulnerable roadway users. The plan will support data-driven decision-making to reduce or eliminate roadway fatalities and introduce innovative technologies to promote equity. If that helps. Thank you.
Yeah. Quick question for Sandee while I try to merge some of these other questions. There was a question about rooftop solar, looking at all those big open rooftops. You sort of touched on the parking garage as maybe being solar. Are other rooftops on the Boise campus available for installation for solar power?
Yeah, unfortunately, the way the rooftops are designed in a dynamic fashion to help with it not looking like just a straight brick wall up against the East End neighborhood, none of the rooftops are physically expansive enough for the capability of solar. And part of that is because we're competing against helipads. So we do add an additional helipad as a part of this new tower, also from like an ease of transportation of those patients into the new surgical suites. And so we're unable to do that on the tower, which is why we've looked at the Northwest parking structure. And also we are evaluating our other campuses for EV and solar in terms of what we might be able to come back and retrofit.
Aparna, a question about sustainability work in surgery centers. Okay. What have you done in terms of sustainability on, I'm assuming, standalone surgical centers? And have you done any work to retrofit existing ambulatory surgical centers for sustainable initiatives?
So the good news is like we have a very centralized approach, right? So whether existing or new, in terms of investing in efficient energy infrastructure or water fixtures, we have blue wrap recycling programs across all of our surgery centers. We have reusable sharp containers programs across all of our surgery centers, cardboard recycling, commingled recycling, stickering of anesthetic gas machines. So we have standardized programming, and then some others may have just we do specialty plastics recycling from a few of them, and we are looking to expand it. So whether it's the newer buildings have more exciting features, and we do OR setbacks with air changes. So we try to have a very standardized approach, if that answers the question.
It does. It does. In regards to the waste diversion data that you talked about, that 90% or 100% goal with 90% diverting from the landfill, did you perform a waste audit to identify items specifically for diversion? And if so, what items or categories were the biggest share of hospital waste, and what methods did you use to divert them?
So we do waste audits. We do both for the university side and the medical center side. So the last audit we performed on the medical center side was in 2021. So we do have really great programs because of our so about 30% of our waste, both on the university side and on the medical center side, is organics. But we have good programming on the med center side in that area. So the biggest opportunity we saw was in specialty plastics recycling. And so we piloted that in 4 of the buildings. And then we also got and then the next big one was in cardboard. So we got another grant for $125,000 and purchased cardboard dedicated, ATS carts to boost that cardboard recycling. And on the campus side, the opportunity was more in organics. And so we expanded composting from 5 buildings on campus to every single dining hall, dining facility, every single residence hall, to 125 buildings or so, based on the waste audit data.
While you're talking about composting, I remember at that first talk I heard about from the Ohio State folks, when Lauren Koch spoke, talking about the central composting facility in the new hospital design. Is that a feature that has been kept? And if so, could you share a little bit more about it?
So I do not have Lauren was much more involved, but what I can do is follow up with you. I know we invested in significant technology to divert food waste from the landfill. Okay. I can get some details from you. I can confirm that is the case, but I don't have specific details on that technology. But we even compost our coffee grounds. Yeah, we even compost our coffee grounds, and some of it we bring back and put it in our own landscapes.
That's great. Did you apply for IRA direct pay yourselves or through third-party vendors?
I believe it was through an architecture and engineering firm that was involved.
And that's where the negotiation was back and forth about who was going to get what chunk of what.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we have taken 7 bonus minutes of your time, and I really appreciate both of you speaking today. It's so exciting to see healthcare starting to come around and join the sustainability movement, and lead to these beautiful structures that are providing great care, not compromising patient care at all, but also leading to improved community health, and looking into really kind of amplify these co-benefits. So I'm really proud to be involved in this work at St. Luke's, and it's so inspiring to see what the folks at Ohio State are doing. And I will say this, my favorite thing about work in sustainability has been the collaboration, and it's so great to see when one institution does something, there's no proprietary nature to it. It's all, hey, this worked for us, you should try this. And I'd love to extend an invitation to anyone else listening across Idaho to come meet with us at St. Luke's to hear what we've learned, and work with us to kind of we can help you make that process a little bit shorter, just as Aparna is helping make that process easier for us. So it's all a big team trying to make our communities healthier, and I appreciate the great work you guys both are doing. So with that, we will see you in October for an exciting discussion with the Boston Medical Center, hearing about their clean power prescription program and their innovative rooftop garden design. And thank you so much for your time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.